Hey guys, welcome back. So we got Brent's project here, the Lawn Ranger. He came back out this past weekend and we did some work on this truck. So we're going to be a little bit idle on this until we get some body work. So we're going to go ahead and go over and show you what we did here. You can see some stuff has changed already if you're he's good at pinpointing stuff that looks a little different. So I'm going to go ahead and go over this with you and show you what we got put on here. We're going to go ahead and be doing Hydro Boost on this truck. So I'm going to show you what we did here for that and show you what we accomplished here. And this truck is just about ready for a body. So moving along very nicely. So let's go ahead and get into this. I had told you we started with the Hydro Boost here. These are the Gates lines that I outlined in my Hydro Boost video. And I had talked about teeing in the return line. Brent was able to get a plastic one here. So I suggested using brass. But if you have access to plastic, it will work. It was reassured to him that this plastic is just as strong as the brass. Obviously, there's no hose clamp here. We still have to hook this up. This return line will run to the booster, which is on the cab, which is not here. You have your pressure line, and then your pressure back to the power steering box from the Hydro Booster. So this does not have the extra port like it would if it had an F-Superduty pump on it with the F-Superduty reservoir, which would have the extra return here. So we can go ahead and you can tee into your return down here like so. Nothing wrong with that. Just trim this hose to where it fits accordingly. We went ahead and installed these power steering lines into this blue top steering box here. So that's all done and complete. Used new clamps down here on the power steering cooler line, and we got another clamp over here that's nice and new. These are, I do believe they're stainless with a rubber around them, so they hopefully will look nice for a long time. In the previous video on this truck, we had covered the battery cables. We finally have this battery cable installed over here, and as you can see, it bolts into the same place as the ground, which you can see here, and that's where the stud is. And then the clamp holds the battery cable up, so that bolts to the engine. As you can see, that sits in there very, very nicely. It's not going to move around on you like it would if it wasn't there. So that's why I suggested making sure you put all that back on there. The battery cable is just here for now. It's a lot easier to put on whenever there's no body in the way. We also finished up the brake lines here. So we have brake lines running down and around. These are all copper nickel. And also right here, this loop's a little bit bigger than normal. I like to leave these loops a little bit larger. They're a lot easier to form and much, much easier to deal with. And we also have the Hydro Booster bypass down here, so there's no rear ABS on this truck. It's on the left side of the frame right in here. Let's see if I can move this up right here. So that's the bypass for the ABS, which we won't be using. And then the line just runs down here. I'll show you a better view of it on the other side. We also got new drive shafts put in here. Took these down to our local drive shaft shop here, had them install new lifetime Spicer U-joints along with new U-bolt caps. Those are front and rear on these drive shafts. Also made sure that they were good internally. New clamps on the boots. Same with the rear. These are lifetime Spicers. They were good from before. We've got a new carrier bearing put on here that has to be pressed on, new clamps and boots. And this universal joint here was also good. And then the rear needed a new universal here. Also, new bolts and caps. Always use new bolts and caps with those. If you're reusing old ones, make sure that you tap the threads on the yoke, clean up your threads on your bolts, and apply a little bit of red Loctite. Something else you'll see back here is we also got the rear shocks installed and got the sway bar installed and the sway bar end links. We ran into a problem with the sway bar end links being too wide to fit into this bracket here. So with the Moog joints, I've ran into that before, where you have to make the bushing narrower to fit in. So the front track bar is notorious for that. So we had to take a flap disc and literally thin out that bushing a little bit to get it up in the bracket here. Also got the e-brake cables installed into the holding bracket here, and we reused the factory mount there. And got everything tidied up back here in the back. So as you can see, we also have the brake line put down in here. See if I can get a better view of it here. There we go. Got the brake line put in. I tried to shape it as nice as possible to match the factory locations. I know it's not perfect, but it looks nice the way that it is. The hitch is fully mounted now. We're probably going to have to end up taking it back off because he has a drop bumper for this truck. We need to make sure that that hitch is going to be good for that bumper before we fully make sure that it's 100% good. The only thing we don't have installed right now are the tank sending units. As you can see, the rear tank is in, the front tank is in, but no sending units. So the reason that there's no sending units is because we didn't realize it, that when I pulled the full fuel sending unit out of the package he brought it in, the pickup foot assembly was broken on both, so we don't have those installed. He had to order a set of those. One thing I want to make note of here is you can see these bolts. These are for your tank straps. Depending on which way you put these in, so this is personal preference. Right now, as you can see, the bolt head is up. The bolt head is up. Those bolts are about 2 inches long. If you ever have to change this bolt for some reason, or this bolt for some reason, you won't be able to get this bolt out. So we did this just to get the tank installed. We're going to go ahead and flip these bolts around, because if you do it the other way, if you ever have to replace this bolt for some reason, you don't have to torch it off to get it out, because it'll hit the cab, or on this cross member, it'll hit the bed. So that is something to keep in mind when you're redoing your truck and don't have a body on it and you're installing stuff. You have to keep in mind how you can get stuff apart when your body is put back on, which is not on when you're doing something like this. We had to replace this gasket as well. Whenever he was moving this from his dolly, we think the gasket got screwed up somehow. It's not a big deal, so we popped this transfer case off there and put a new gasket on there. Very, very simple to do. So we're going to come over here so you can see the brake line that was installed. And we used the copper nickel, ran it in the factory location here. Tried to keep it as nice and neat as possible. And then also we have the new selector valve. When you're replacing your selector valve, make sure that you only purchase a Ford one. They are the only ones that seem to last. The aftermarket ones, which are a little bit cheaper, not a lot cheaper, even if you buy their most expensive one, is good for a few months at most. So always make sure you use a Ford one for that. They still sell that new. That one's brand new there. But Brent's truck's coming along pretty good here. And the next step here is to get the fuel sending units in, which, I mean, even then, that's not something that needs to be done. As you can see, we have the transmission rubber line here. We're going to run that up whenever we get the body started. We'll put these up here and get the core support mounted and figure out where we need to isolate those lines to so we don't have joints. If you did want to have a joint in here, though, you can always put a joint somewhere in this general area. That way, if you have to take your transmission out, you can remove the section right there and loop back so that you can contain your fluids. You're not draining your whole system, and it's a lot easier than trying to unhook the lines out of the transmission body or anything like that. To report back on the dipstick here from when we installed last, there is no more leaks. This was leaking tremendously bad, and with that new ATS dipstick tube adapter, or the lower dipstick tube, it cleaned up all the leaks. So this is nice and dry now. There's no more leaks coming from here, and That was a very easy solution, something that I recommend to anybody that's having problems with this lower dipstick staying sealed. We also got the starter installed. It's a little hard to see, but it's in there. We use the 99 to 03 2-bolt starter. I forget which style it is. It is not the Mishimoto or the Mitsubishi style, but we go ahead and use that Super Duty 2-bolt. It's a lot nicer starter than what came on these originally. But that's Brent's truck. Right now we're waiting on a body. So he's got it in the paint shop as of right now, I do believe. So once we can get a body put on here, we can really start slapping this thing together. Hopefully it'll be sooner than later we can get this truck done for him. I think he'll be more than excited to have this truck back. And one thing that there's another video out on is we got this steering all set up. So we have all the Michael Lucia upgraded steering on this truck. And something else that's on here is the PMF steering stabilizer. That is all ready to go. We have to do a little touch-up paint on the crossbar, so that's why you don't see the steering stabilizers actually on. That way we can get that all set up and painted and cleaned up real nice for them. Don't get anything on the shocks. So we'll get those installed here the next time he comes out. That's not something that needs to be done right away. But this is all stuff that you should do when you're restoring your truck, so to speak. You know, if you want to take your truck down to a full frame and redo this, these are the things you should be doing. You know, try to replace as much as you can, like we're doing with this truck over here. But you know, your lines may be good here, your power steering lines might be good, but you know, if you can replace them, you know, they're not real expensive. Just it's easier to replace everything that needs to be replaced, replace some things that might be older and is a lot easier to get to right now. It's just little stuff like that. So like this bolt here, I'm probably going to end up taking this bolt out, putting anti-seize in it. I may even take and put a grease fitting in the four-wheel drive shifter. You know, it's a lot easier to do that now with no body in the way. You don't have to crawl underneath the truck, deal with the front drive shaft and stuff like that. But Brent's truck's coming along really, really well. I'm happy with how this is going, and I'm hoping that we can get this wrapped up here. He's supposed to let me know whenever the body's ready to come back out. So once the body comes out, I'm hoping that the truck over there will be able to put both cabs on the same day. That'd be fantastic. And this truck is getting the S&B body mounts. So we'll go ahead and cover installing those as well. So watch for a video for that. So thanks for watching, guys. If you want to continue the progress on this truck, please subscribe to my channel and you'll get updates. I'm not sure how YouTube does their updating anymore. I've heard of people saying that they don't get the notifications like they used to. So just check your YouTube weekly. We try to do a weekly Friday video for these. And we'll keep you updated on OBS content, 7.3 content. Hopefully we can cover some gas stuff for these trucks, because I have a Lightning personally. My dad has a Lightning. So we got some gas trucks. We got to do some work to those too. So hopefully you'll see those on the video here also. So thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate it. And we'll see you on the next one.